Welcome to the Bear Sheep broadcast, where we talk about building stability, preserving legacy, and strengthening the communities we call home. I'm Kalia Heaven Barakyahu, founder and president of Bear Sheet, a 501c3 nonprofit, and I'm honored you're spending this time with us today. This show exists to have real conversations about homeownership, wealth building, family transitions, and the decisions that shape generations. At Bearsheet, our mission is simple but powerful. We empower families to build lasting stability by providing holistic education and compassionate support in homeownership, wealth building, and end of life planning. We help individuals make informed decisions, preserve their legacy, and strengthen the communities they call home. To all our listeners, if there's a topic you want to discuss, send us an email to info@bearsheetcorporation.org. Again, that's info@bearsheetcorporation.org. Today, we're going to start our conversation talking about a conversation that many of us will probably have. And many of us probably are not looking forward to it if we haven't had it already. We're going to talk about aging parents and loved ones. If your parents or your loved ones, someone that you are caring for, have you ever thought about what happens if they get sick? Where are dad's important papers? Do they have a will? Who makes the medical decisions if they can't? And today's episode, that's what we're going to talk about because here's the reality. Every family will eventually face one or some of these questions. They will have these hard conversations with their family member. They may have to have these hard conversations. It may not even be about an aging parent or loved one. It could be a spouse to a spouse. But many times you may have children, you may have people who are there to care for you, and these are questions that as someone gets older and they start aging can come up. What we're doing now is we are starting the conversation early because many times these conversations happen during the crisis, during the situation. They happen after a fall or a stroke. Sadly, they happen sometimes in the hospital, at someone's bedside, when they're told they're on hospice. They can happen after dementia begins or someone passes away. And when you have to have these conversations during those times, you are already at an emotional high. In some cases, families are grieving, they're in denial. There may be families are not talking to each other, family members. And at this moment, decisions have to be made. Decisions that should be happening over months now need to happen within hours. So today we're going to start the conversation that every family should have before it's too late. And if you've ever had these questions, including anything dealing with probate, like what happens when if there is no will, or what Medicaid, what's going to happen to the house, who pays for it, my family members, should they still be driving, um who's going to pay for this house if something happens to them, is there a mortgage, a matter of fact, where is your money coming from, and how much money do you make, and what bills are left out there that need to be paid, what happens to your credit cards, do you have credit cards, all of these things are questions that come up. And our goal here on Bear Sheet is to help you preserve your family's peace and your family's legacy. Now, this episode is an educational episode. It's not legal, financial, tax, or medical advice because every family member's situation is unique, and we encourage you to consult a qualified professional regarding your specific circumstances. You have real estate questions, you can reach out to Kalia. You have questions, you can reach out to Bear Sheet, and we are going to connect you with someone who can better help you if we don't have the answer. Because some of these do require you to seek advice. When I remember being in the emergency room with a friend of the family, and they had to take the mom to the emergency room. She was suffering from it seemed like the beginning of dementia, and she wasn't feeling so well. And so we took her to the emergency room, and I remember I was just there for support, but I remember the family telling me that because they did not have a power of attorney medical. You have a power of attorney where you can handle, their finances if they need you to, but because they didn't have one for medical, that they were not going to be able to offer any advice or tell the doctor what needed to be done for their loved one. It was going to be left at the mercy of the hospital. And I'm very thankful we have doctors, we have good hospitals. Not all, we're going to be honest here on this episode, but there are a lot of good doctors, there are a lot of good nurses, there are a lot of good healthcare professionals that are out there to help people. But who wants their life decisions to just be left in the hands of someone who doesn't even know your loved one? Is just reading their information from a chart? Not I. So when they found that out, we had to leave because we could not, in good conscience, leave the family member there to get help when we weren't going to be able to offer any input, or they weren't going to be able to offer any input. This is a situation that I told myself I never wanted to be in. Now, everybody's family situation is different. In my family, I've always told my mom since I was younger that she would not end up in a retirement or a nursing home. So that is something that my family has already put out there. And that is our goal. You can make the promises, life can throw things at you that you didn't account for, but to the best of my ability, my mom will not end up in a nursing home. That is for my family. But that is a conversation that everyone needs to have with their family. So let's begin by, why don't we have these conversations? That was a question that was posed. Well, why don't we have those conversations? Well, I can tell you why I didn't want to have these conversations. It's tough. I mean, how do you approach your loved one and say, um, I know you're getting older. I need to find out this information. How are your bills getting paid? Do you want to go live in a nursing home or a retirement home? Do you want to stay in your house? These questions have to be approached with love and very delicately. This is not a text conversation. This is not an email. This is not a rushed conversation. This is a, let's sit down and let's talk about it. And I remember, this was a while ago, but I remember talking to my family and reaching out, because there's three of us, to my brother and saying, we need to have these conversations. I shared with him some of the things that I experienced. You experience a lot of things. You meet a lot of different people in real estate. You hear a lot of different stories. And these are things that I wanted to avoid, to make sure that our parents could have peace as they are aging, and we could have peace knowing what to do and what their desires are. And that's how I started. I started with talking to my siblings and saying, these are conversations that I think we need to have. And what are your thoughts here? Are you on the same page? And then when's a good time for us to do that? That may be an approach for some, but whatever the best approach is for you, you may be an only sibling, an only child, or your family may be estranged, and you may be the one, the oldest or the youngest, or whoever is the one that's going to be the most influential. When you have that conversation with that aging loved one, you want to do it with love and compassion. And you don't just want to come out and say, what do you want to do? How do you want us to plan stuff if you die? Like, who wants to hear that? That is not how you have that conversation. Because when we have those conversations, what our family members are hearing is they're getting older. We're reminding them that they're getting old and that death can be around the corner. And really, tomorrow's not promised. None of us know when it may be our last time, our last hour. That's why, if you're brought up Depending on how you're brought up, you're to live that life like today is your last, and make sure that um, you know where your eternity is going to be spent. But everyone has their different views and beliefs, and that doesn't come into play on this call, but it does come into play with when you start having these conversations with your family members, because you are going to need to know what they're you are going to need to honor your beliefs and know what these beliefs are, so that you can best talk to your family. When you're talking to them, yeah, you're reminding them that they're getting older. You're also reminding them that there's a possibility they may lose their independence. You know, I hear sometimes people say, once an adult, twice a child. I don't like that that saying, but I understand what they're saying. You're a child and you need to be taken care of. You're an adult and you're taking care of others, and then you become where you need help again. But all those things should be done with love and dignity, even if you are helping someone who's losing their independence. You never want to appear disrespectful, and you don't want to assume. But when the time comes, you want to know what needs to be done. And that's why you want to have these conversations. So figure out the best way to approach your loved one, and let them know, I love you. And these are some questions, these are some things that we want to talk about. And as we talk a little bit more, I'll give you a couple prompts of things that you can say. If you think about how hard it is to try to locate important documents while your loved one's in surgery, I'll never forget even going to a doctor's appointment for some, and you have to pull out records and stuff. And I was like, where is that? Where do we have that? Think of tax time when you got to pull out your pay stubs and all these things. That there may be really organized people out there who have everything organized. Please keep that up. That is a blessed skill. But for some, that is not the case. When it comes down to tax time, we are looking through drawers and envelopes, trying to find all the paperwork to give to the tax accountant, especially if you got a business, you're looking for receipts. Imagine having to do that while your loved one's in surgery and they need you to pull out information, or they want to determine what type of medical care your parents wanted or even have. Like, do you know what type of insurance your parents have or your loved one has? What happens if someone can no longer communicate? Or if you have siblings that are arguing because they don't get along and they want to know, what are we going to do with the house? What are we going to All of these things, they're not unusual situations. You can go on Reddit right now, and much of what we're talking about is on there. People are living this. They are going through those situations. They have these questions. So this is happening every day. And the worst part is many people are not prepared. And that's what we want to be. We want to be prepared. Someone asked me, if a family member passed away, where are the important documents? Where would their important documents be? Not because they wanted to know exactly where they were, they wanted to know if I knew where they were. And I was like, that's a good question. These are things that you want to discuss with your loved one, your spouse. So in many households, you may have, even if both people are working and spending money, you usually have one, I would say, designated person who does the bills. A lot of cases, I won't say usually, every family is different, but you have one of the spouses that are handling the bills and making sure they're getting paid. You may have a spouse who's handling all the passwords. They're logging into the power company, the utilities, the credit cards. They're getting all these things paid. Well, what happens if the next day that person is not there? You can't reach them. Do you know how to get it? Do you know what accounts they have open? Do you know how to log into their accounts and get the information? And now let's amp that up. Not only do you have to figure out how to do that, but now you're doing it while you're worried or grieving or planning for something that you did, the unexpected. That's a lot of pressure. And so that was one thing that every family should do. Everyone should know where the passwords are. If you have shared accounts, if you are paying the bills for your family, the other spouse or the other person should know where the passwords are. They should have a way to access it. Even if it's an app where there's one password and you can go in there and see it, if you have it written down in books, however you have it, someone should be able to access it. And not only that, they should know what accounts to access. There are so many people who have private accounts, you wouldn't even know what to access. So these things need to be written and recorded, because if you are saving up money for your family, but then if something happens to you, no one knows that you had it, that's not going to help. So it's just about helping to be prepared. Many family conflicts happen after someone passes away. And there are some cases where it's caused by greed, but sometimes it's not greed. It is confusion. It is, I want to do this for mom. I want to do this for dad. I want to do this for auntie. This is what they would have wanted. Well, no, that's not what they wanted. Yes, this is what they wanted. These things go on because no one has had the discussion. They don't know what dad wanted. They don't know who was supposed to do what. They don't know where the documents are. They don't know whether there was a will. They don't know who has the authority. There's no plan. So everybody has an opinion and everybody wants to do right by that family member. But where there's no plan, there is no direction. So if you take anything from this part of the broadcast, you need to have a plan. You need to start that difficult discussion. You need to know where all the important documents are going to be kept. And sometimes as our loved ones get older, they may not remember everything. I mean, and I'm not talking about the situations where this may not even just be someone who's older. You've had people who have passed away and they're in their 40s and their 30s. I was most recently, I was looking online. I don't know how I found it, and I saw a school colleague, a classmate, 46, passed away. No one expected that. 40s, that's a young person, passed away. I don't even think, I don't even know if maybe he did have everything in line and, all the things lined up for his family, but he left behind a wife and a child and his parents. These are situations where this is now, you don't want to be left in the situation where you have to find out all this information. You don't want to wait till your family member is older and aging. We're getting this information now. We want to start now. We want to train our children. This is what they're supposed to do. You have a plan. You put these things aside because death is a part of life. There's nothing wrong with it. Of course, you want to die of natural causes. You don't want to, they don't want it to be an accident or some type of health issue, but death happens. And so situations in life happen that can throw us off. We want to do our part for the basis to be prepared. Can't prepare for everything, but the things that we can do, we can prepare. And one, it starts with a conversation. So, why don't most people want to have this conversation? It's difficult. Look at all the things that we just talked about now. How many of you are cringing at some of the things that are said? Like these are tough things to think about. These are tough things. And I remember, never wanting my parents to think about that I wanted something from them. I'm asking you about these things because I want money from you or I want you to leave me something. That may be some people, but that's not me. And I want to believe that that's not the majority of people. We genuinely love our family members and want to make sure we do right by them. They did right by us. We want to definitely do right by them. And so that's why we're having these conversations. But I remember all those things. And I remember going over and over and like, how do I say this? What's the best way? Is this the best time? Like I shared with you, even before I talked with my brother, I had many conversations with my husband. I had many conversations probably with myself, figuring out and prayer, how do I have these conversations? So, how do you bring it up? Like I said, with love, with compassion, not control. Don't don't start with a harsh question. Instead, say something like, "Auntie, I love you. I want to make sure that if something unexpected ever happens, we know how to honor your desires." Or, "Uncle, if there was ever an emergency, where would we find your important papers?" See, these questions communicate care. They're not putting fear there. They're not saying, oh, making them feel like they're going to die or lose their independence. It's letting them know we just want to have a conversation. And as you have a conversation, some of the things you want to find out. And let me say, this is not a one time conversation. When we started having these conversations, we were having weekly family meetings at a certain time where we could discuss topics that are coming up so that we knew what to do. So this was over, and even there are even some things we still need to discuss and make sure that we know we have everything under control. And things change. Life changes. So you make additions or you make changes, but at least you have a basis for this conversation. So some of the conversations should include, and these are conversations maybe eventually too, if you're married, if you have children, these are questions you want to have with your spouse. These are things you may want to think about. You don't have to wait to your age considered more seasoned in age, or an age parent, or a senior, as when in Virginia 55 and older. You don't have to wait for that to be prepared. So some of the conversations should include, do you have a will? Do you have a power of attorney? And I'm going to give you some questions so that you can write these down or at least have them in your mind, or maybe you're checking them off. Did that? Kalia, we've already talked about this. Kalia, that's awesome. But just to make sure, who would make the medical decisions if you couldn't? Do we have a power of attorney medical for those decisions? Where do you keep your important documents? Where do you keep your passwords and your logins and your bills? That is very important. What are your desires regarding your home? What do you want, what do you want to go do with your home? What are your desires regarding medical treatment? I'll never forget a loved one that we had, and they weren't doing very well. And we went to go see them, and they had been put in, they were probably at the place where they were in hospice, and we were hoping for them, praying for them to do better, but where we went, they were in a facility that was more like hospice. And above the bed, it had a do not resuscitate order. That was the first time my family had even known that was a desire. That was tough, to see that there and not even know that that was the case. So, some of these things, just having the conversation helps you prepare mentally to be able to live out these uh, desires for your family member. What if they wanted to be cremated instead of having a burial? How do you know this? Do you have life insurance? Because with these desires, you need to know, do they have life insurance? What does it cover? Because sometimes when you're grieving and if you go to the wrong funeral home, I have heard stories from clients of some funeral homes just taking every bit of the money that was allotted in the life insurance to the funeral arrangements. And the people, you just lost someone. You may not have anyone there with you to be able to guide or be that sense of reason why you're there. And you're just making all those decisions. And afterwards, they're using the full life insurance. They're even having to come out of money for pocket to pay for different things, all because they didn't have these conversations. They didn't have time to even know what it covered. That's a lot of what's going on. They're not easy conversations, but these are loving conversations because they reduce stress And this is one of the hardest things that family members have to go through. Now, I will share with you too. If you are a more seasoned person and you're hearing this episode and someone does come to you and wants to have this conversation with you, please understand where they're coming from. And please also in yourself think about this is a good conversation because you need to know this. Because people, your family should be out to help you. So someone needs to know this information. And also, if you're a more seasoned person listening and you're like Kalia, this is a better way for what they need to say to me if they want to have this conversation. Like if they came like this, or you may have a question that from your experience you want to add here. They also need to know this. They also need to do this. Send us an email, give us a call, reach out to the radio station. Let us know your thoughts and your feedback because your experiences help other people because we're a community. It doesn't matter where you are. You could be in another state, another country. It's so cool now. We're on, you're on the internet, you're on the radio. You can hear these things all over the world. And no matter where you are, we go through the same things. We're people. People go through these same things, maybe a different degree, maybe a different person, a different time, a different age, but everyone is born, they live, they pass away. So we can help people. So if you have a tip, if you have a suggestion that may benefit someone, if you have a story that you want to share, let us know. And we will get it into one of our episodes so that everyone else can benefit from it as well. For many families, another part of this whole thing that you want to talk about is the home. What happens to the home when someone passes away, or they don't even have to pass away? Maybe they move into a retirement home. Maybe someone moves in with a family member. And a home is where, birthdays were celebrated, children were born and raised, memories were made. And for many people, this is one of the largest financial assets that they own. So it's so important to talk about what happens to the house before a crisis happens. And you could just ask a simple question like, what are your long-term goals for your home? Like I shared with you, I knew from the beginning that my mom wasn't going to go. One of the things she wasn't going to go in a retirement home or a nursing home when she got older. Um, Thankfully, my mom can live on her own, but if that was not the case, that wasn't going to happen. So when my mom decided it was time to downsize, we had to think about that. That may mean making concessions there. You may need a one level home instead of a two-level home. You may need a senior community instead of a community that's not a senior community. You may need a place with an HOA that does the lawn maintenance and the snow removal and the outside care so your family member doesn't have to do it. These are questions and things to think about because you want as your loved one ages to age with peace and grace. So you want to know where do they hope to spend the rest of their life? Do they want to consider downsizing? Would they ever move in with a family member? And if they would, which one? Maybe you have a big family and there's 5 siblings and all of them are close to mom and dad. Who's mom or dad moving in with if they have to, or both of them if they have to move in? If you're caring for a loved one, a sibling or someone, where will they go? All these things are good questions that you need to discuss. Too often as adults, we make assumptions. We assume mom, dad, loved one wants this. But we need to ask those questions. Now, as I said, we were going to start the conversation. We're not going to finish. There's so many other things that we need to talk about. So we're going to put a pin in it, as they say, until we can talk about it again. If today's conversation gave you clarity or sparked questions, we invite you to connect with us. Visit bearsheetcorporation.org or email info@bearsheetcorporation.org or call us at 844-405-3924. Thank you for spending this time with us. This is Bear Sheet, building stability, preserving legacy, and strengthening the community we call home. Join us next time as we continue these conversations that help families move forward with clarity, confidence, and dignity.